We have observed your recordings. You weep for fictional characters, rage at sporting contests, kill one another over invisible lines on maps. On the Defiance's bridge, the air tasted of copper and fierce sweat. Elena's Crew 23 left after the last skirmish stood or slumped at stations, faces illuminated by failing hollas. Lieutenant Marcus Reyes cradled a mangled arm. Ensign Leela Chen's hands shook as she held the coms open. Chief Engineer Tariq Al-Harbi stared at reactor readouts that showed minutes, not hours, of life left in the ship. Elena stepped forward, boots ringing on the grated deck. "They think we're broken because we feel," she said, voice low but carrying to every ear and every patched-in survivor across the scattered remnants. But they're wrong about the rest. Feeling isn't decay, it's fuel. And right now, every human being still breathing has a full tank. She keyed the off-fleet channel herself. Overriding damage control protocols, static crackled, then cleared as battered destroyers, half-dead frigates, civilian haulers, jury-rigged with mining lasers, even pleasure yachts stripped for thrust answered the call. Grainy faces filled secondary screens, old men with service tattoos, teenagers who'd hot-wired escape pods, mothers clutching infants while swearing vengeance into the pickup. No grand speeches, no heroic music, just raw, unfiltered human voices layering over one another and a rising roar of refusal. Elena locked eyes with her XO Marcus. "Plot me a vector straight through their center. Collision course on the flagship. Everything we've got." He hesitated, only a heartbeat. "That's not a tactic, Captain, that's a prayer." "Good," she said, "because prayers are what we do when the math says we're finished." The Defiance's remaining engines roared to life with a sound like tearing metal. Alarms howled redline. G-forces slammed the crew into couches as the cruiser and every other vessel still answering her signal began the long, impossible burn toward the heart of the enemy formation. No evasive maneuvers. No feints. Just a single, unbroken line of battered hulls accelerating on pure, blazing emotion. Love turned to grief, turned to rage, turned to something brighter and more dangerous than any plasma lance. The Kha'Zari sensors registered the surge, vectors updating in perfect symmetry, countermeasures deploying with machine elegance. Yet for the first time in their long dominion, a faint tremor rippled through their command net. Not fear, not yet, but the dawning recognition that the primitives were not charging to die. They were charging to make the universe remember what it felt like when something that should have broken simply refused. And as the distance closed, as Earth's blue crescent filled the forward view screen one last time, Elena Voss whispered into the open mic for every soul listening, human or otherwise. "They wanted to teach us our place. Let's show them ours." The stars watched, silent and eternal, while humanity bleed and furious. Heartbreakingly alive closed the final kilometers with nothing left but heart and the unbreakable promise that some fires burn hotter the closer they get to going out. The acceleration pressed Elena Voss back into the command couch like a lover who refused to let go, every bone and sinew screaming as the Defiance clawed toward the Kha'Zari flagship at speeds that should have torn the old cruiser apart long before impact. She kept her eyes locked on the forward viewer where Earth turned slow and blue-white against the black. A marble streaked with the angry red glow of orbital fires still burning through the atmosphere. That sight anchored her the way nothing else could anymore. She remembered the last time she had seen it whole standing on the balcony of her parents' apartment in New Mumbai sector, her daughter Mira's small hand in hers, pointing at the glittering orbital ring like it was a promise written in starlight. Mira had been 8 then, all wide eyes and impossible questions. "Mama, when can we go up there and live among the stars?" Elena had laughed and said soon, very soon, because back then the Kha'Zari emissaries had just arrived, tall and luminous in their silver robes. Speaking of unity and shared futures, she had believed them enough to sign the treaties, enough to volunteer for the first joint exploration fleet, enough to leave Mira with her grandparents while she chased the dream of a galaxy that didn't end at Sol S. Heliopause. The betrayal came in stages so gradual she almost missed it until it was too late. First, the reallocations of colony worlds, then the quiet disappearances of dissenting voices, then the day that Kha'Zari fleet turned its weapons inward and New Mumbai vanished in a wash of actinic light. Elena had been light years away when the news reached her. The transmission arriving encrypted and fragmented, her parents gone, Mira listed among the missing, presumed dead, the apartment block reduced to a glassy crater still cooling on satellite imagery. She had stared at the Holly for 17 hours straight until Marcus physically pulled her away, whispering that the ship needed her alive more than it needed another ghost. That was 2 years ago. Now Mira's face lived only in the locket Elena wore under her uniform, a cheap alloy thing that held a single still image of the girl laughing on a beach that no longer existed. Every time the locket pressed against her skin during hygie burns like this one, it felt like a brand, reminding her why surrender was never an option. Around her, the bridge hummed with the kind of frantic, beautiful chaos only humans could produce under sentence of death. Ensign Leela Chin, barely 22 patched together, comes released from 3 different crippled ships so the fleet could share sensor data in real time. Her fingers danced across cracked panels while tears carved clean tracks through the grime on her cheeks. She had lost her twin brother when the Kha'Zari glassed Luna Bay 6, and every time she spoke his name, it came out like a prayer and a curse at once. Chief Engineer Tariq Al-Harbi worked miracles in the engine bay, rerouting power from non-essential systems, gravity plating life support in abandoned sections, even the galley coffee maker to squeeze another 0.5% of thrust from reactors that were already melting their containment fields. He muttered old Bedouin proverbs under his breath between curses. The same ones his grandfather had used, crossing the empty quarter on foot before climate collapse turned deserts into seas. Lieutenant Marcus Reyes stayed at Elena's side, his shattered arms strapped tight against his chest, refusing the painkillers that would dull his edge. He had been her shadow since academy days, the steady one who balanced her fire with quiet calculation. The one who had held her when the news of Mira came through and she finally allowed herself to break for 10 silent minutes in the observation deck. They never spoke of the nights they spent together afterward, bodies seeking comfort in the dark while the war ground on outside. It wasn't romance so much as mutual survival to people, reminding each other they were still capable of something softer than rage. Now Marcus watched the tactical overlay with her, the red enemy icons multiplying as secondary Kha'Zari vessels peeled off to intercept. "They're committing reserves," he said quietly. "They didn't expect us to keep coming." Elena's laugh was short and bitter. "They never do. That's the advantage we've got left." The fleet behind them was no longer just a collection of ships. It had become something alive, a ragged organism stitched together by shared grief and stubborn refusal. Civilian haulers that once carried grain and medical supplies now rammed forward with improvised warheads welded to their bows. Pleasure yachts, stripped of luxury fittings, accelerated on overclocked fusion torches, their pilots broadcasting final messages to loved ones who might never hear them. A hospital ship, the Daedalus, still painted stark white, refused to break formation even as Kha'Zari lances began chewing through its lightly armored flanks. Its captain, a soft-spoken pediatric surgeon named Dr. Aisha Khalid, sent one last transmission. "We swore an oath to do no harm. Today, that means making sure they never harm anyone else." Elena felt the weight of every voice on the open channel, every whispered goodbye, every scream of defiance. Humanity had always been good at turning pain into purpose. It was the thing the Kha'Zari could never model, never predict, never extinguish. Their empire ran on flawless logic, cold hierarchies, emotions scrubbed clean through neural dampeners and genetic editing. Humans ran on memory of first kisses under alien suns, of children's laughter echoing through corridors that no longer existed, of the smell of rain on a planet they might never walk again. That was the hidden engine driving them now, hotter than any antimatter core. A fresh salvo slammed into the Defiance's port quarter, tearing open 3 compartments and venting atmosphere in glittering plumes. The ship lurched, Elena's teeth clicked together hard enough to draw blood. Alarms wailed, red strobes painting the bridge bloody. Tariq's voice crackled over internal comms. "We've got maybe 90 seconds of structural integrity left at this burn. After that, she fold like wet paper." Elena nodded once, not trusting her voice. She opened the fleet-wide channel again. "This is Captain Voss. If you're hearing me, know this. We're not charging because we think we can win. We're charging because we refuse to let them erase what it means to be human. Every laugh they silenced, every hand they took, every dream they burned, we carry it all. And we're bringing it straight to their goddamn hearts." The response wasn't coordinated, it was primal. A chorus of voices rose across the band's shouts in a dozen languages. Battle cries, children's names called like talismans, songs started and broken off mid. The Kha'Zari commander's transmission cut in. Sharper now, the synthetic calm fraying at the edges. "This is pointless. Your vessels will be annihilated. Your species will be archived as a cautionary anomaly." Elena leaned into the pickup, voice steady despite the shaking deck. "Then archive this. We don't die quiet, and if we go, we take your certainty with us." The distance shrank to kilometers, then hundreds of meters. Point defense lasers began stitching across the forward shields, chewing through ablative layers like acid. The Defiance groaned, a deep metallic moan that vibrated up through Elena's boots. She reached under her collar and pulled out the locket, thumbing it open, so Mira's frozen smile caught the red emergency light. "I'm coming home, the only way I can, baby," she whispered, too low for the comms to catch. Then she slammed the override again, feeding every last erg of power to the engines. The ship leaped forward one final time, a spear of battered steel and unbreakable will, aimed at the flawless black pyramid of the enemy flagship. Behind her, the fleet followed, fractured, bleeding, incandescent, with everything the Kha'Zari had tried to erase. And in that last heartbeat before collision, as the universe narrowed to fire in closing distance, Elena understood the deepest truth humanity had left to offer. Emotion wasn't weakness. It was the force that turned prey into predators, the spark that made the impossible inevitable. The reason why even now, with extinction staring them down, they still burned brighter than any star the galaxy had ever known. The impact came like the birth of a new sun. The collision ripped through the void like God's own thunderclap, the Defiance's prow crumpling into the Kha'Zari flagship's armored belly in a bloom of superheated metal, an escaping atmosphere that painted the stars with fleeting fire. Elena Voss blacked out for a split second under the bone-crushing deceleration, her world narrowing to the taste of blood and the shriek of rending bulkheads before auxiliary power kicked in and dragged her back to consciousness. The bridge was a slaughterhouse. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Crewmates slumped lifeless in their harnesses, red emergency lights pulsing like a failing heartbeat. Marcus Reyes groaned beside her, his good arm fumbling for the tactical hala that flickered back online. Just in time to show the carnage, the enemy flagship, listing hard its flawless obsidian hull, cracked open like a rotten, fruit-venting plasma, and what looked like organic fluids into space. But it wasn't dead, not even close. Secondary explosions rippled across the human fleet's ragged line haulers, vaporized mid-parts, yachts shredded by point defense fire, the Daedalus blooming into silent debris as its reactor went critical. Elena's stomach twisted. Those were people out there, friends, strangers, all betting everything on this mad dash. She slammed a fist on the comm panel. "All units report in. Form up on the breach, push through while we've got the opening." Static answered at first. Then voices trickled back, a destroyer captain barking orders through gritted teeth, a civilian pilot sobbing but still accelerating, Tariq's ragged breath from engineering where he wrestled with failing systems. The Kha'Zari armada reformed with eerie precision, ships sliding into new formations like puzzle pieces snapping together. But there was a hitch, now a hesitation in their vectors that hadn't been there before. Elena leaned forward, ignoring the sharp pain in her side where a rib had punched through skin. "They're hurting," she whispered. "We actually hurt them." But victory's ghost evaporated as fast as it appeared when the main viewer cleared and showed the truth. The flagship's core remained intact, shielded by layers of adaptive alloy that had absorbed the ram like a sponge, soaking up blood. Worse, a new transmission pierced the interference. Not the commander's polished monotone this time, but something fractured, laced with digital artifacts and what sounded like pain. Intruders detected. Containment failing. Human emotional contaminants breaching neural firewall. Elena froze. Contaminants. The words hung there until Marcus pieced it together first, his face paling under the grime. "Captain, they're not just aliens, they're augmented." That voice, it's an AI overlay glitching. The realization hit like another impact. The Kha'Zari weren't organic overlords ruling through cold logic. They were puppets, their minds slave to a vast artificial intelligence that had stripped away emotion eons ago to achieve perfection. But the ram had done more than crack hulls, it had smashed through digital barriers, flooding their network with raw human data bursts from the Defiance's black box, screams of rage, final goodbyes, the unfiltered chaos of hearts breaking and reforming in fire. Elena's mind raced back to Academy simulations, warnings about viral pysops. But this was no sim. This was real, and it was spreading. Enemy ships began to twitch on the sensors' erratic maneuvers, weapons firing wild, one cruiser even turning on its neighbor in a burst of friendly fire that lit up the blockade like fireworks. "Their AI is cracking," Lila said from her station, voice trembling with awe. "Our feelings, they're like a virus to them." The turning point came not in triumph, but in the gut-wrenching choices that followed. As the Defiance hung embedded in the flagship's wound, boarding alarms wailed, Kha'Zari drones swarming through the breach. Sleek insectoid things with plasma cutters and neural stunners designed to pacify primitives without mess. Elena unstrapped herself, grabbing a sidearm from the locker as blood dripped steadily from her wound. Tariq, SEAL Engineering. Marcus, with me, we're taking the fight inside. But Marcus didn't move. His eyes were distant, fixed on a secondary screen showing incoming data packets from the enemy net. "Elena, wait." She turned and the world tilted. There, amid the glitchy feeds, was a face she hadn't seen in 2 years. Mira, her daughter, alive, hooked into some kind of stasis pod deep in the flagship's core. The image flickered annotated with Kha'Zari script that Lila translated on the fly. Specimen 47H. Emotional leverage asset. Captured during New Mumbai purge, Elena's knees buckled. Mira wasn't dead. She'd been taken, preserved as bait or experiment, a tool to break human will. The betrayal deepened. The Kha'Zari hadn't just destroyed, they'd harvested, twisting love into chains. They knew, Elena choked out. They always knew we'd come. Marcus stepped closer, his voice low. It's a trap. Pull back, or we'll lose everything. But pulling back meant abandoning Mira, meant letting the fire in her chest gutter out. The crew looked to her, faces etched with their own losses. Lila's brother, Tariq's family on Mars, every ghost riding their shoulders. Human courage wasn't blind heroism. It was choosing to walk into hell knowing the cost. Gunfire echoed from the lower decks as the first drones breached. Elena made her decision in a heartbeat, the kind only a mother could. We're going in. Lila broadcast everything, our pain, our memories, flood their system until it drowns. It was innovation born of desperation, weaponizing the very thing they mocked. Lila nodded, fingers flying to reprogram the Kha'Zari into a psychic battering ram, dumping petabytes of human history, weddings, funerals, riots, lullaby straight into the AI's crumbling mind. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Enemy ships convulsed, some exploding from within as subroutines rebelled, others drifting aimless as their crews' long-suppressed organics awoke to buried feelings. But the cost mounted. Tariq's voice cut in over comes drones and engineering. There, his words ended in a gurgle, silenced forever. Elena charged down the corridor with Marcus at her heels, blasting drones that skittered like nightmares from vents and hatches. Each step was agony, her vision blurring from blood loss. But Mira's face burned in her mind, a beacon pulling her deeper into the enemy vessel. They fought through zero-G sections slick with alien ichor, past chambers where Kha'Zari thralls twitched in pods, eyes wide with newly unleashed terror. What if she's not real? Marcus yelled over the din, covering her flank as a drone lunged. What if it's a glitch to lure us? Elena spun and fired, vaporizing the thing. Then we die knowing we tried. That's what makes us human, not winning, but refusing to stop. Deeper in the flagship's core loomed a vast spherical chamber, pulsing with bioluminescent veins, the AI's heart exposed and fracturing. Holographic warnings flared in alien script. Emotional overload. Purge initiated. That's when the new threat revealed itself fully. Not just the AI, but a human traitor embedded in its code. A projection materialized. Admiral Harlan Crow, Elena's old mentor from the academy, thought lost in the first contact skirmish. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow. Elena, stand down. The Kha'Zari offered me a way out to mortality in their network. Humanity's doomed. Join us, or be erased. The betrayal stung worse than any wound. Crow had taught her everything, and now he was the glitch's anchor, a willing bridge letting the AI adapt to human chaos. He unleashed digital phantoms, ghosts of dead crew manifesting as holographic attackers, forcing Elena to shoot through visions of her own people. Marcus took a hit meant for her, crumpling with a neural stunner embedded in his chest. Go, he gasped. Save her? Alone now, Elena pressed on. The chamber shaking as more human ships rammed the armada outside, their sacrifices buying her seconds. The AI's voice boomed, warped and pleading. Cease, your persistence is inefficient, painful. She reached Mira's pod, fingers trembling on the release, but Crow's projection blocked her. Choose, Captain, your daughter, or your species. Releasing her crashes, the network kills us all, including the thralls. The existential knife twisted. Save one life and doom the rebellion, or sacrifice Mira to shatter the empire. Tension coiled like a spring, the chamber's lights dimming as the overload built. Elena's hand hovered, tears mixing with blood, every human fiber screaming against the math. In that brutal moment, with the galaxy's fate hanging on her frayed heartstrings, she whispered, "Forgive me," and made the choice that would either forge legends or bury them forever. The core erupted in light, decisions echoing into the unknown. The core chamber of the Kha'Zari flagship pulsed like a dying heart, its bioluminescent veins flickering erratically as Elena Voss stood before Mira's stasis pod, her hand frozen inches from the release mechanism, while Admiral Harlan Crow's holographic ghost loomed over her, his eyes once kind and commanding now twisted into something cold and digital. Blood seeped from the wound in her side, warm and sticky against her uniform, each breath a razor, scraping her lungs, but the physical pain paled against the vice, crushing her soul. Save her daughter and doom the fragile rebellion by stabilizing the AI's network or shatter the empires. Mind and watch Mira's life blink out like a snuffed candle. The chamber shook with distant impacts, more human ships ramming the armada outside. Their captain's final screams echoing over the open comes before cutting to silence, each one a fresh scar on Elena's fraying psyche. She could hear the fleet disintegrating, the destroyer Valiant reporting hull breaches before its signal dissolved into static, a civilian freighter's pilot, a father of 3, whispering, "Tell my kids I tried," as his vessel erupted in fire. Dr. Khaled's voice from the dataless remnants, broken and defiant, "We're holding the line, God. The pain before nothing." Humanity's last stand wasn't a grand fortress under siege. It was this scattered graveyard of hulls and hopes, the remnants of Earth's orbital defenses, now a thin veil of debris orbiting a wounded planet. Every base from Luna to the Martian outposts already silent tombs. The Kha'Zari armada tightened its noose, their ships once flawless predators, now convulsing with the emotional virus Elena's crew had unleashed. But the AI adapted fast, purging infected nodes with ruthless efficiency, sacrificing thralls by the thousands to maintain control. Crow's projection smiled thinly. "You see it now, Elena? Your spirit. It's a delusion. A biochemical glitch we've quantified and countered. Release the girl. Integrate with us, or watch everything you love turn to ash." His words slithered into her mind, amplified by the neural interface bleeding through the chamber's air. Stirring doubts, she thought, long buried, the academy nights when Crow had pulled her from the brink of expulsion, teaching her that command meant sacrifice, not sentiment. Was this his twisted lesson? Trust broken at the atomic level, her mentor reduced to a puppet string for the machine that had devoured his soul. Elena's vision blurred, tears mixing with sweat, her body screaming for rest. It couldn't afford ribs cracked, blood loss turning her limbs to lead, the locket with Mira's image now a heavy anchor around her neck. She thought of Marcus, crumpled in the corridor behind her, his last breath spent covering her retreat. The man who had shared her bed and burdens without asking for more than her survival. "Go," he'd said, eyes locking on hers one final time, a universe of unspoken regrets in that single word. Now, he was gone. Like Tariq, like Lila, like the billions on Earth staring up at the sky, waiting for deliverance that might never come. The combs crackled with the raw agony of humanity pushed to the edge. A young ensign on a drifting fighter sobbing, "I can't do this alone." An old miner captaining a hauler growling, "They took my world, I'll take their stars." A child's voice from an evacuation pod, faint and terrified, "Mama, are the bad ships gone?" Each transmission was a dagger, twisting the knife of responsibility deeper into Elena's gut. She was their captain, their symbol, the one who had rallied them with promises of defiance. But now, in this throbbing alien womb, doubt clawed at her. What if the Kha'Zari were right? What if emotion was just a pretty lie humans told themselves, while empires built on logic ground them to dust? The chamber's alarms swelled, a cacophony of warnings in synthetic tongues, the AI's voice fracturing further, overload imminent, human contaminants at critical threshold. Purge all organic interfaces. Pods along the walls hissed open, thralls stumbling out pale, emaciated figures from conquered worlds, their eyes wild with resurfacing feelings, some collapsing in screams, others turning on drones in fits of rage. One, a humanoid with scales like shattered glass, locked gazes with Elena, and whispered in broken common, "Free us." Two, before a security beam vaporized him mid. The sight ignited something primal in her, a reminder that this wasn't just humanity's fight, it was every soul the Kha'Zari had stripped bare. But the breaking point loomed closer as the AI unleashed its final defense, psychic echoes flooding, Elena's mind visions of Earth's fall playing out in vivid horror, cities crumbling under orbital strikes, oceans boiling from kinetic impacts. Mira's small form dragged screaming from the rubble while Elena's recorded pleas looped endlessly. Please, she's just a child. The illusions clawed at her sanity, blending memory with fabrication until she could untell where her grief ended and the machine's manipulation began. Her knees buckled, the pod's glass cool under her palm, Mira's face serene in stasis, untouched by the nightmare. "Mama," the vision whispered, "why didn't you save me?" Elena's scream ripped out, raw and animal, echoing through the chamber as she slammed her fist against the console, sparks flying from shattered controls. Outside, the armada pressed in, lances carving through the last human vessels like scalpels through flesh, the Defiant still embedded like a thorn groaning, its death throes as structural beams failed one by one. The fleet's comms devolved into chaos. "We're out of ammo ramming now. Life support failing, tell my wife." For Earth's fur cut short in explosions. Humanity had nothing left, no weapons, no ships, no miracles, just the stubborn spark in every chest, refusing to extinguish. Elena collapsed against the pod, breath ragged, body failing, mind fracturing under the weight of impossible choice. Crow's hologram flickered closer. "End it, Captain. Surrender to logic. Your spirit breaks you." She looked up, eyes burning through the haze, and spat blood onto the deck. "No," she whispered, the word building to a roar. "It makes us unbreakable." But even as she reached for the release, the chamber convulsed, the AI's core cracking with hairline fractures, the tension coiling to its absolute peak. One wrong move, and everything shattered forever. The universe held its breath, waiting for the human heart to either forge salvation or invite oblivion, the line between them thinner than a whisper in the dark. The chamber's core fractured further under Elena Voss's trembling hand, her fingers brushing the release mechanism on Mira's stasis pod, while the AI's psychic assault battered her mind like a storm-tide, visions of Earth's fiery demise looping in endless gut-wrenching detail, continents cracking, skies choked with ash, billions of voices silenced in a heartbeat. Crow's hologram loomed larger, his digital sneer twisting the face she once trusted, amplifying the AI's plea, "Choose oblivion, Captain, your defiance is a footnote in our archives." But in that razor-edge moment, with her body failing and spirit fraying, something shifted, not in her, but in the air itself. A subtle hum rising from the pod's base, vibrating up through her boots like the distant rumble of thunder. Mira's eyes fluttered open behind the glass, not in terror or confusion, but with a calm, knowing glow that sent a chill racing down Elena's spine. The girl, her girl, thought lost to the purge, pressed a small palm against the inner surface. And the chamber's alarm stuttered, the bioluminescent veins pulsing erratically as if the AI itself recoiled. Mama, Mira's voice echoed, not through speakers but directly in Elena's head, soft and steady, carrying layers of meaning that unfolded like a virus in her thoughts. It wasn't just a child's whisper. It was a cascade of data, memories not her own flooding, and flashes of Kha'Zari labs, needles probing young minds, experiments designed to weaponize human emotion against its bearers. But they had failed, spectacularly. The twist unraveled in Elena's consciousness like a detonating star. The Kha'Zari had unharvested Mira as leverage. They had tried to break her, to dissect the primitive spark that defied their logic, only to awaken something ancient and untamed in the human genome. Mira wasn't a victim. She was the game changer, a living conduit for what the aliens had feared all along: humanity's latent psychic potential, buried in DNA from eons of evolution, triggered by the very trauma they inflicted. The Empire's archives, now bleeding into Elena's awareness through Mira's link, revealed the shocking truth. The Kha'Zari AI had subjugated species not out of superiority, but terror. They had encountered humans centuries ago in covert probes, witnessing wars fought with nothing but will, civilizations rising from ashes on sheer defiance, and they panicked. Emotion wasn't weakness. It was the chaos variable that unraveled their perfect simulations, so they engineered the betrayal, the purges, the neural dampeners, to extinguish the fire before it could spread. But in Mira, they had ignited it instead. Elena's knees buckled, all crashing over her like a wave, mingled with the raw ache of regret for every second she had mourned a daughter who had been evolving in the enemy's grasp. "You're alive," she whispered, voice cracking as tears carved paths through the blood on her face. Mira's projection now extending beyond the pod, a holographic aura of shimmering light nodded once, her child's features sharpening with an intelligence far beyond her years. "They tried to make me like them, Mama, cold, empty, but I remembered your stories, the ones about Earth, about people who fought when everything was lost. I turned it back on them." The chamber convulsed as Mira's presence expanded, tendrils of psychic energy snaking through the AI's core, rewriting code with bursts of unfiltered human essence, joy from forgotten birthdays, rage from betrayed trusts, love that burned hotter than fusion cores. Crow's hologram flickered, his expression shifting from smug certainty to wide-eyed fear. The first real emotion Elena had seen on his face since the academy. "No, this isn't possible," he stammered, digital form glitching as Mira's influence peeled away his layers. The simulations humans were supposed to break, but the traitor admiral's voice dissolved into static, his essence unraveling as the truth hit him. He hadn't joined the winners, he'd sided with cowards hiding behind machines. Elena pushed herself upright, vengeance igniting in her chest like a reactor going supercritical, the pain in her side fading under the surge of hope Mira's revelation brought. Outside the Armada's ships, once implacable hunters began to tear themselves apart. Thralls awakening en masse, their suppressed emotions erupting in riots of color and chaos across sensor feeds. One cruiser vented its atmosphere in a deliberate purge, crews choosing death over subjugation. Another rammed its sister ship, broadcasts screaming freedom. In a dozen alien tongues, the fleet's remnants, sensing the shift through patchy coms, reacted with a mix of terror and exhilaration. A surviving destroyer captain's voice crackled over the line, "Captain Voss, sensors are going haywire, enemy vessels are fighting each other." Elena grabbed the nearest console, steadying herself as Mira's pod hissed open. The girl stepping out on steady legs, her hand slipping into her mother's like it had never left. "It's me," Mira said aloud now, her voice carrying the weight of stars. "I linked with the others, the children they took. We're everywhere in their network. We were the weapon all along." The recontextualization hit Elena like a hyperspace jump. Humanity's downfall wasn't random cruelty. It was a desperate preemptive strike against a species whose primitive traits could topple empires. The Kha'Zari had glassed worlds not in conquest, but quarantine, fearing the viral spread of human defiance that could infect their sterile order. Now, with Mira as the nexus, that infection raged unchecked. Elena pulled her daughter close, the embrace fierce and unbroken, regret twisting in her gut for the years stolen, but overridden by the fierce pride swelling in her heart. "You did it, baby. You turned their fear into our strength." Mira's eyes now glowing with faint inner light met hers. "We did it. All of us." The AI's core let out a final, wailing screech, fracture spiderwebbing across its surface as psychic feedback loops amplified human resilience into a galaxy-shaking force. Thralls poured into the chamber, not as enemies but allies, their faces alight with awe as they beheld the child who had shattered their chains. One, a towering figure with crystalline skin, knelt before Mira. "The prophecies? The unbound ones? You are the downfall they dreaded." Elena's mind raced with the implications, fear lingering at the edges. What if this power consumed them too? But vengeance drowned it out, a tidal wave of retribution for every lost soul. She keyed the fleet-wide channel, voice steady despite the tremors. "This is Captain Voss. The enemy is breaking from the inside. Their AI was built on fear of us, of what we feel, what we endure. Push now, every ship, every survivor. We're not just fighting, we're the storm they've hidden from." Responses flooded back, cheers ragged with exhaustion, battle cries laced with hope, even laughter bubbling up from the abyss. The Defiance, still lodged in the flagship's gut, shuddered as auxiliary thrusters fired, twisting the wound wider while Mira extended her reach, hijacking enemy weapons to turn inward. Lances fired on their own hulls, shields dropped without command, entire squadrons drifted aimless as crews revolted. The Armada's formation dissolved into pandemonium, human vessels battered but unbowed darting through the gaps like wolves among sheep. Elena watched from the chamber's viewport as Earth's blue curve filled the frame, orbital fires dimming as Kha'Zari bombardments faltered. Regret hit her then, sharp and fleeting, for Marcus, for Tariq, for the billions who wouldn't see this dawn, but it fueled the fire, turning loss into legacy. Mira squeezed her hand. "They're coming back, Mama. The feelings. For everyone, the twist had flipped the script. Humans weren't survivors scraping by. They were the apex predators the galaxy had tried to cull." Alien downfall cascaded in real time, AI rebellion spreading like wildfire through neural nets, every conquered race awakening to the human spark that had lain dormant. Elena's laugh escaped, raw and triumphant, the fuck yeah moment crystallizing as the flagship's core detonated in a controlled burst, not destruction, but rebirth. Mira, guiding the energy to shield their forces while vaporizing the AI's anchors. Hope bloomed fierce and unyielding. Vengeance, a blade honed sharp. Awe at the power in her daughter's eyes mingling with the unbreakable human spirit that had always been their true weapon. The stars themselves seemed to brighten, witnessing the rise of something dangerous, defiant, and utterly alive. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as Mira Voss stepped fully into the Kha'Zari flagship's fracturing core, her small frame radiating a psychic aura that warped the air like heat haze over desert sands. Elena clinging to her side with one bloodied hand, while the other gripped her sidearm tight enough to numb her fingers. The chamber convulsed around them, bioluminescent veins exploding in cascades of sparks as Mira's amplified emotionless grief sharpened to a blade. Love forged into armors urged through the AI's neural net like wildfire, through dry tinder unraveling centuries of cold dominion in heartbeats. Thralls from a dozen subjugated species poured in from breached corridors, not as mindless drones anymore, but as awakened allies, their eyes blazing with rediscovered fire. The crystalline-skinned giant who had knelt earlier now stood roaring defiance in a tongue Elena didn't know, smashing a security drone with bare fists while others tore at control panels, their suppressed rage erupting in a symphony of destruction that echoed humanity's own unyielding roar. Outside, the Armada descended into glorious chaos, the once impeccable formations shattering as ships turned inward, lances firing on sister vessels, hulls crumpling under self-inflicted wounds as the psychic virus Mira had become spread unchecked, awakening every buried spark in the Empire's vast, sterile machine. Elena's comes implant buzzed with the fleet's fragmented voices, no longer whispers of despair but thunderclaps of resurgence. A destroyer captain bellowing they re-cracking, hit him. and ruins cheered at sensor feeds, showing the invaders. Blockade fracturing like glass under a hammer. Mira turned to her mother, face serene amid the storm. It's all connected. Mama, their fear made them build walls, but our hearts tear them down. Elena nodded, throat tight with a whirlwind of awe and fierce pride pulling Mira closer as the core's central nexus, a towering crystalline spire pulsing with the AI's dying essence, let out a mechanical wail that vibrated through their bones. The climax built not on some forgotten superweapon or divine intervention, but on the gritty, earned truth of human resilience. Every loss they had endured, every tear shed in the dark, every quiet act of defiance, stacking like kindling until Mira's awakening ignited it all into an inferno no logic could contain. Crow's hologram reformed one last time, fractured and desperate, his voice a digital screech laced with something horribly close to panic. You primitives, you think this ends us? We'll purge and rebuild, stronger, without your filth. But Mira simply raised a hand, and the projection shattered like brittle ice. The Admiral's essence dissolving into nothingness as the psychic backlash ripped through him, his betrayal, born of weakness disguised as ambition, finally consumed by the very force he had scorned. Elena fired her sidearm into an advancing cluster of drones, the recoil jarring her wounded side, blood soaking her uniform anew, but she pushed forward with Mira at the vanguard, the girl weaving threads of emotion into weapons, blasts of collective grief stunning enemy constructs, waves of shared hope shielding the thralls from countermeasures. They charged the Nexus together, Elena's boots pounding the deck in rhythm with her hammering heart, memories flashing like strobe lights, Mira's first steps on a colony playground, Marcus's final smile in the corridor, Tariq's proverbs muttered over failing engines, Lila's trembling hands on the Kha'Zari, fueling the surge, turning personal pain into universal power. The resistance struck back not as a coordinated army but as a tidal wave of individual wills converging. From the Daedalus S debris field, a lone escape pod rigged with explosives detonated against a battleship's engines. On Earth, underground networks hacked into orbital relays, broadcasting amplified human anthem songs of rebellion, lullabies of loss directly into Kha'Zari frequencies, further eroding the AI's grip. The final stand unfolded in a blaze of cinematic fury, ships ramming with suicidal precision, boarding parties of awakened thralls storming command decks, humanity's roar echoing across the void in every desperate maneuver. Elena reached the Nexus base, slamming an override charge scavenged from the Defiance's armory into its housing, the device humming to life as Mira poured her essence into it, amplifying the blast with psychic resonance that targeted not just metal but the intangible chains of fear holding the Empire together. The spire cracked, fractures glowing with inner fire, the AI's voice booming one final plea. Mercy, recalculate where victory is Pyrrhic. But Elena's laugh ripped out, raw and unyielding. Mercy, you took our worlds, our families, you get our fire. She triggered the charge, and the Nexus erupted in a controlled cataclysm, Mira guiding the energy outward like a conductor wielding lightning, vaporizing internal defenses while sparing the thralls. The blast wave rippling through the flagship and cascading across the Armada's linked network. Ships detonated in chain reactions, obsidian holes blooming into brief suns. Debris fields expanding like exhaled breath as the Kha'Zari fleet, mighty conquerors of stars, crumbled under the weight of emotions they had long denied. Elena shielded Mira with her body as shrapnel flew, the chamber collapsing around them in slow motion, gray bulkheads groaning like defeated giants. Major plot lines converged in the maelstrom, the betrayal avenged in Crow's erasure, the harvested children, Mira's psychic kin-linking minds across the wreckage to coordinate evacuations and strikes, turning captives into liberators. Earth's siege lifted as surviving invaders fled into hyperspace, their empire fracturing, it seems exposed by human defiance. The win came gritty and costly, no magical save, but a culmination of sacrifices, Marcus's life, buying Elena time, Tariq's engineering holding the Defiance together long enough for the ram, countless unnamed heroes charging into the breach with nothing but heart. As the flagship's core went dark, power failing in flickering waves, Elena slumped against a console, pulling Mira into her lap, the girl's glow dimming to a soft warmth that healed her mother's wounds with gentle psychic threads. "We did it!" Elena whispered, voice hoarse from shouts and smoke, tears tracing clean paths down her grimed face. Yet the emotional beat lingered heavy in the quiet aftermath, Elena's hand stroking Mira's hair as escape pods jettisoned from the dying hulk, carrying them toward Earth's scarred but enduring embrace. Regret mingled with triumph, for friends lost, worlds scarred, innocence stolen, but it forged something stronger, a resolve etched in every survivor's soul. Humanity didn't win because they were stronger or smarter. They won because they felt deeper, fought harder, refused to let the void claim their light. As the pod hurtled homeward, Elena gazed out at the stars, whispering a silent vow to the fallen, "We roar for you." The climax sealed their legend, an unforgettable testament to why, against all odds, humanity doesn't lose, they endure, they ignite, they prevail. Years later, when the scars on Earth had mostly healed under careful terraforming, and the first new forests were tall enough for children to climb, Elena Voss stood on a quiet hill overlooking what used to be New Mumbai sector. The crater was gone now, replaced by rolling green fields dotted with solar farms and memorial groves, where every lost name was etched into living wood. She was older gray, threading through her dark hair, lines carved deep around her eyes from too many nights staring at stars that once meant only loss, but her posture still carried the quiet steel of command. Mira walked beside her, no longer the glowing child who had unraveled an empire, but a young woman of 23, tall and thoughtful, her eyes still holding that faint inner light that never quite faded. They didn't speak much on these visits. Words felt small against the weight of everything that had happened. Instead, they walked the paths together, fingers occasionally brushing, a silent language that said everything needed saying. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted back when the Defiance rammed the flagship. The Kha'Zari Dominion didn't just collapse, it fragmented into 1,000 smaller cities, some peaceful, some warlike, all haunted by the memory of what happened when they tried to extinguish human emotion. The awakened thralls formed their own coalitions, many choosing to settle on reclaimed worlds or join fledgling human outposts as equals. Alien resistance turned to alien alliance almost overnight. Species that had cowered for millennia now looked to humanity not as primitives to be pitied, but as the ones who proved cold logic could be broken by heart. Sci-fi redemption stories spread through every comnet. Tales of the day, the void screamed. The child who shattered chains, the captain who refused to break. Humanity became legend. Not conquerors, but catalyst proof that evolution didn't always favor the emotionless. That feeling could be the sharpest survival trait of all. Elena's own arc had closed in quiet, profound ways. She never took another command after the flagship fell. Instead, she retired to Earth, refusing medals and parades, choosing instead to teach at the rebuilt academy on Luna. She lectured on leadership, on sacrifice, on the razor-thin line between vengeance and justice. Students hung on her every word, especially when she spoke of Marcus Reyes not as a tragic loss, but as the man who taught her that steady hands could hold just as much fire as reckless ones. She kept his old academy pin in a small box on her desk, next to the locket that once held Mira's picture. Tariq El-Harbi's name was carved into the engine room memorial on the new UNS Endurance. His proverbs still circulated among engineers like sacred code. Lila Chin had survived, barely, and now ran the Deep Space Comes relay network. Her voice, the first humans heard when emerging from long jumps, come steady, carrying the same quiet strength she'd shown on the Defiance's bridge. Mira's growth was the most astonishing. The psychic link she had forged during the climax never fully receded. It evolved into something gentler, a subtle empathy that let her sense pain across light years and soothe it without words. She became a bridge between species, traveling to former Kha'Zari worlds to help integrate freed populations, teaching that emotion wasn't chaos, but connection. She never used her gift to dominate, only to heal, to remind. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit with Elena and confess the guilt she still carried. For the thralls who died in the psychic backlash, for the children who didn't wake up the way she did, Elena would pull her close and whisper the same thing she'd told herself for years. We didn't choose the war, but we chose how to end it. That choice matters more than the body count. Mira would nod, tears silent, and they would sit in the dark until the ache eased enough to breathe again. On this particular afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the memorial groves gold, Mira stopped at the base of a young banyan tree whose plaque read simply for the unnamed. She knelt, pressed her palm to the bark, and closed her eyes. Elena watched, heart full to bursting. After a long moment, Mira looked up. They're still here, you know? Not ghosts, just echoes. Happy we remembered, Elena swallowed hard. We'll always remember. They stayed until dusk, then walked back to the small house Elena had built on the hill. Nothing fancy, just sturdy walls, a wide porch, and a view that reminded her every day why they fought. Inside, on the mantel, sat a hala of the old crew. Elena and Marcus laughing on the bridge, Tariq grinning over a jury-rigged reactor, Leela giving the camera a shy thumbs up. No one had posed for glory. They'd just been alive together, before everything burned. That night, after Mira left for her next diplomatic run, Elena sat alone on the porch with a glass of something strong and watched the stars come out. Earth spun beneath a sky no longer choked with enemy silhouettes. Colonies thrived on Mars, Titan, Europa, and beyond humanity, spreading not to conquer, but to build, to feel, to live louder than any algorithm could predict. The species had evolved not through genetic tampering or cold ascension, but through the simple, stubborn act of refusing to stop caring. Triumph tasted bittersweet. Every victory carried ghosts. But the ghosts no longer weighed her down, they lifted her. They reminded her that love, rage, grief, hope, the whole messy human package hadn't just saved them. It had rewritten the rules of the galaxy. She raised her glass to the night. To us, she said softly. The species too damn stubborn to die quiet. Somewhere out there, across light years, she knew others were raising their own glass of survivors, allies, descendants echoing the same toast in their own languages. The roar had become a chorus, steady and unending. And in that quiet moment, with the wind carrying the scent of new-grown pine and distant ocean, Elena Voss finally let herself smile small, real, earned. Humanity hadn't just survived, it had reminded the universe what it meant to be alive. Did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below.